Once you try these buttermilk biscuits, you will never buy them from the store ever again. Hey everyone, I'm Dina from simplyhomecook.com, and today I'm going to show you how to make these incredible buttermilk biscuits. They are so soft and buttery, and they have those amazing flaky layers, and they have a lot of calories, but it's so worth it. Let me show you how to make it. In a large bowl, add 2 1/3 cups of all-purpose flour, along with 5 teaspoons of baking powder, 2 teaspoons of granulated sugar, and 1 teaspoon of salt. Now grab a whisk and roughly mix that together. Now you want to cut up 3/4 cups of unsalted cold butter. And you want to make sure that the butter is extremely cold straight out of the fridge. That's really important for biscuits. And you just want to cut it into small cubes. Once the butter is all cut up, you just add it right into the flour mixture, and then you want to cut the butter into the flour. And for this step, I used a pastry cutter, but if you don't have a pastry cutter, you can honestly just use your clean hands. The reason why I try to avoid using my hands is because you want to keep the butter cold, and your hands are kind of warm, so it's going to start melting down the butter, and we kind of want to avoid that. But that's okay. If it does get too melty, you can always just put it in the fridge to get it nice and cold again. Once the butter is cut down to about the size of a pea, that's when you want to add in 1 cup of cold buttermilk. Again, cold ingredients here are really important. Make sure that buttermilk is just straight out of the fridge. Now use a spatula to roughly mix everything together, and then you want to transfer it over onto your clean work surface. Now, using your hands, you want to form the dough into a rectangle shape. It doesn't really matter which size, as long as it's roughly like a rectangle. A rectangle. Once it's a rectangle, you want to use either a bench scraper or honestly a knife to cut it in half. And then you want to take 1/2 and then stack it on top. And then pat it back down into the same sized rectangle you did in the beginning. And then you want to cut it in half again, stack it again, and then flatten it out again. And then you want to stack it one more time. So you want to do a total of about 3 times. I mean, plus minus 1 time, it's not a big deal. The reason why we do this is because as you stack, you're creating layers. And all those flaky layers have like pockets of butter. So when it bakes up, all those pockets start to melt and it rises, and that's what makes a biscuit so amazing and delicious. Now, depending on how cold or warm your butter was or how warm your hands were, there's a chance that your butter might start to melt a little more than we want. I actually held it out too long. I was working with it too long and it started getting too soft, which you want to avoid because you won't have those nice flaky pockets of butter and it won't make those big tall biscuits. So if at any point it gets a little too warm, you can always just put it in the fridge, let it firm up a little, and then continue that stacking process. Now, once you shaped it for the last time, you want to kind of press it down and roll it out to a circle that's about 3/4 of an inch thick. Then use a round biscuit or cookie cutter to cut out the biscuits. And my cookie cutter was about 3 inches in diameter. Once you've got your biscuits all cut out, you want to transfer them to a baking sheet lined with some parchment paper. At this point, you'll have some scraps left over. Make sure not to throw those away. Just gather them back up with your hands and then roll it out to 3/4 inches thick again. And then you'll probably get maybe 2, maybe 3 more biscuits out of it. And just transfer those over to the baking sheet as well. Now at this point, you will need to put it in the freezer for about 15 minutes just to really firm up that butter that probably got a little too soft. And if you are not a big baker and you hate making a mess in your kitchen, but you love homemade buttermilk biscuits, I highly recommend to double this recipe because the amazing thing about this biscuits recipe is that you can freeze them and bake them later. So at this point, this is where you would freeze them if you want to make them later. You would just put them on the parchment lined baking sheet, freeze them until they're solid, and then whichever ones you want to save for later, just put it into a gallon-sized Ziploc bag, and it's good for months. And once you're ready to enjoy them, all you gotta do is take them, put it on a baking sheet, and bake it straight from the frozen form. And it's perfect, it's amazing, and your kitchen's clean. So that's just awesome. Now while the biscuits are in the freezer, you want to preheat your oven to 425 degrees Fahrenheit and you want to bake them for about 15 minutes or until they're golden brown. And there you have it. Now you know how to make incredible homemade buttermilk biscuits. I know this might be a little labor intensive and intimidating to some people, but really when you break it down, it's not that complicated. It just takes a little bit of time and kind of makes a little bit of a mess, but it is well worth it. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video, and if you did, please make sure to subscribe to my channel so you guys never miss out on any of my new recipes. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.